Hi everyone, it's Christina from the DIYmommy.com, and today I want to show you how to build a board and batten hook wall in an entry. I am so excited to be partnering with Brookfield Residential this year on a few fantastic DIY projects that I know you guys are going to enjoy. Brookfield Residential is a home builder here in Alberta. They also build communities and they love to help people find roots, find community, and that is what I love about them. So this helps me because I get a whole new home to work in. It's so exciting, a new layout, some new decor. So maybe this home that I'm working in is similar to what you have. It just gives us all just a whole different viewpoint and some more DIY and decor ideas. And I have the privilege to build a DIY board and batten hook wall in the mudroom of the beautiful Dawson show home in the Edgemont community in Edmonton. It has a modern farmhouse style, which I know a lot of you are going to absolutely love. I know I loved it. So this hook wall that I'm going to build is going to also have that modern farmhouse flair. Let's get started.
So here's how this mudroom wall looked before. There were just some hooks that were placed on the wall on some shelving that was pre-bought, but I do love this built-in bench that was built by Brookfield's builder. It is absolutely amazing. There is some storage in this bench, so I'm definitely going to incorporate this into my DIY board and batten hook wall area for some extra storage. So the first thing I did was I took down these shelves with the hooks on them. They worked, but I think what I'm going to do here is going to look a little more built in, and it's going to make a better use of the space. Really, when you DIY anything and you can design it exactly to fit your wall or your nook, that's going to be the best use of your space. Then I measured the base of the wall above the bench and I cut a piece of MDF trim to fit that. So I bought a pack of 10 of these pieces of trim at Lowe's for $40. This is very, very affordable. I'm just using a small 7¼ inch cross-cut saw to cut the trim. So it's always better to measure and cut a little bit bigger than you think you'll need, and then you can just really shave off little bits of the trim, and that's going to give you a better fit when you're cutting trim pieces for board and batten. So now I have this trim piece that I just shaved off the edge and it fits perfectly. This is going to prevent you from having to really add lots of caulking into all the holes and the lines you're going to create and give you a really nice professional look. Then I measured the top of the wall where I wanted the top piece of my trim to be. Next, I'm taking a finishing nail gun and I'm nailing the trim on either side. I know there's going to be studs on either edge of this trim on each side, and then I took my stud finder and I marked out all of the other studs in the wall. You want to try to nail your trim to studs when you can. That's going to be the most secure. So I'm marking out all the studs, and then I'm taking my finishing nail gun and I'm nailing my trim to the studs. So I'm nailing it in about 4 places on the wall so it is nice and secure. Next, I'm measuring where I want a piece in the middle to be. I decided to make this board and batten have a horizontal piece that goes about 2/3 between the top and the bottom piece, just to give it a little bit extra detail. And again, I'm nailing it to the wall on either side and then on the studs. And I'm just finishing nailing the bottom piece to the studs with my nail gun as well. Next, I'm going to measure the space between the top 2 pieces of trim and the space between the bottom 2 pieces of trim for my vertical strips of board and batten. Again, I'm cutting this trim. It's 3½ inch wide trim that I found again at Lowe's, really, really inexpensive, and I'm cutting them with my cross-cut saw or my miter saw. So I'm putting one piece on either side, and then I'm marking where the middle of my wall is, and I'm going to nail a piece to the middle of the wall. I also like to use a level to make sure that vertically my piece is nice and straight. You can put a little bit of construction glue on the back of these vertical battens because you probably won't be hitting a stud when you put these on, just to make them more secure. But these small pieces, I find once they're nailed to the drywall and you are caulking them all the way around and painting them, they are quite secure. I have done quite a few board and batten walls and that seems to work out pretty well. Then I'm measuring between the center piece and the edge pieces to secure my other pieces here. So I'm dividing this board and batten hook wall into 4 sections because there are 4 people living in this room. I was so excited because this one I cut exactly the right size the first time. But like I said, I usually err on cutting my trim pieces a little bit too long and then trimming them really slightly so that they have a really nice snug fit. So the bottom pieces, again, I'm measuring vertically from the middle piece of trim to the bottom. I am marking the center of my wall. I'm using my level to make sure that these pieces are nice and straight from the top to the bottom, and I'm using my finishing nail gun to nail them to the wall. Again, you can put some construction glue on the back of these if they're not on a stud and then nail them after that, or you can just nail them to the wall if they're a shorter piece like I'm using, and then just make sure to secure them to the wall with some caulking and some paint after you're finished. Make sure to use a level when you're putting these on because I have definitely put board and batten on crooked and it is a pain to try to remove and nail on the wall again. Always make sure to use protective gear when you're using power tools like finishing nail guns and saws. Make sure you're wearing some safety glasses, and gloves are really handy as well. So here's how my board and batten wall looks before I'm finishing caulking it. So you can see that everything's quite snug, but there's still gaps between the wall and the trim. So I'm using this painter's acrylic latex caulking, and what I do is I just put a very tiny bead of caulking between the board and batten trim and my wall, just like this, in all the edges. And then I just take my finger, I wet it in some water, and then I just smooth the caulking down so that it's nice and flat. I know there are lots of different methods on how to caulk trim. This is my method, this is what I use, and I really like the look of it. So here's how the board and batten trim looks after I caulk it. As you can see, it just closes up those little gaps that you see where the trim meets the wall. Then I'm using painter's tape to tape off the other parts of the wall that I don't want to paint. They're already painted so nicely. I want to make sure that I don't touch them with my paintbrush and with my caulking. I'm caulking the edges of where my board and batten hook wall is going to meet my wall of the entry here of this mudroom, and I'm smoothing it out with my finger again. So while all that caulking dries, I usually like to let it dry for at least 2 hours. I try to be patient. I'm going to put up some artwork and things on this entry wall just to make it look just a little bit more fun, and also these are functional as well. So I found this welcome sign at Winners, and I'm just marking out where I want it on my wall. I decided to center it over my board and batten. So I'm marking the center of the wall, and then I'm marking 2 marks on either side of the center. When you're hanging up something into drywall and not a stud, just make sure to use drywall anchors. So you just screw those into the wall first, and then you screw the screws into the drywall anchors to make sure that your artwork is nice and secure. Then I decided to hang some lanterns on either side of this sign. They're just battery operated LED lanterns. I just used shelf brackets and I mounted them to the wall, and then I put an S hook on the top of the lantern. Then I just attached the lantern with the S hook to these shelf brackets. A very, very inexpensive DIY, and I think the result is really cute and looks very modern farmhouse to match this home's aesthetic. So once the caulking is nice and dry, definitely wait at least 2 hours. I am taking some paint and I'm going to use a paintbrush to paint all of the edges, so basically where all of my trim meets the wall. And then I'm going to use a roller to add the paint to the middle of the trim as well as right on the trim for a nice smooth finish. I prefer to use a roller on these nice smooth areas because that's going to give you the nicest, smoothest finish with little to no brush marks. And then of course I use my little angle 2-inch brush where the trim meets the wall. Then I'm adding a little mirror to this side of the entry. It's always nice to have a mirror in the entry because that's usually the place that you want to kind of check out how you look before you leave. I found these hooks at Lowe's, and they're just really simple black colored hooks. I'm just marking where I want them on the wall. So I decided to center them on these sections here on this middle trim area. I'm taking a drill and I'm drilling what are called pilot holes. So they're holes that are slightly smaller than my screws into the board and batten. And then I'm taking my screws and a screwdriver and attaching the hooks to the board and batten. So these pilot holes help guide my screws where I want them to go, and they also just help it make it a lot more easier to screw these hooks onto my board and batten trim. Then finally, I'm going to add some screws on the top row of my trim. I'm adding these in different spots, sort of where the vertical and the horizontal trim meets. And here is my finished board and batten entry hook wall. I'm adding some baskets to this beautiful built-in bench, and that's just going to add a little bit more storage and a little bit more organization to this bench area. So you could put your shoes here, your accessories, and I think it's a really great addition to this DIY hook wall. I'm also adding a pillow with a modern farmhouse look, just one, so it's not too hard to move around if you want to open and close the bench. And then I'm just adding some bags and jackets and things, and the staggering of these hooks makes it so that you can hang pretty much anything that you want here. So here's how this mudroom entry looked before, and here's how it looks now after I've built this really simple and affordable DIY board and batten hook wall. I really like how this lantern and this art kind of makes it a little bit more interesting. The mirror adds some functionality and beauty to it as well. And I love its black and white modern farmhouse look. I think this entry is very functional. I think it's very affordable. And this is certainly a great DIY that most anybody can do. You need a few simple tools and you're ready to go.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope you enjoyed this DIY board and batten hook wall tutorial. I absolutely love this as a method to organize if you're into really simple organization systems like I am. Thanks again to Brookfield Residential for partnering with me on this DIY project. I can't wait to partner with more DIY projects this year in all sorts of different show homes. Can't wait to share that with you guys. There's going to be tons of affordable and simple DIY ideas featuring just really simple power tools and tips and tricks that I hope you can find useful. Let me know in the comments below if you would attempt to build this DIY board and batten hook wall. I would love to hear what you think about this project. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more DIY and decor ideas. Don't forget to check out the description box below if you want to read a blog post about this DIY for some more information. I'll also leave some more resources for the power tools and things in the description box below, as well as information on Brookfield Residential and this beautiful show home. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video. Bye!